Pete's been dunking on. Okay, well, we're live. I can't. I was just talking to our participants for today in the green room before we went live about how one of them's been dunking on me hard over the last, I don't know, it feels like millennia, but 6 weeks or so. Anyhow, happy Friday. Welcome to the live show. I'm your host, of course, Adam Quiney. Let's start off with a simultaneous sip out of your live show sponsored Chippendale mug. Here we go. Chock full of nuts. What a coffee. What a rich flavor. Let's see. So today, what we've got, I'm excited. We've got a couple rock stars here that are going to do some live coaching. And in addition to the live coaching, I'm going to be providing feedback to Pete, our coach today, just on what's happening and where there might be to go or what he might be stepping past. And I would say that this is, Pete is modeling some of the highest edge of coaching that you could imagine for a whole bunch of reasons. You know, when someone's getting feedback in the moment, full stop, whether it's live or not, it's really edgy. It's edgy to be corrected as we're doing something, but it's also the most potent place to receive feedback because that's where we can correct in the moment. Whereas if you look at the corporate model for feedback, it usually is 6 months later and people are like, you know, be less aggressive in meetings. And we're like, okay, am I aggressive in meetings? I can't remember a time I did that. And then we try to apply that feedback. It just never really makes a huge difference. And so one, Pete's practicing this today. Two, it's happening live while some of you are watching and, you know, it's being recorded for posterity and all of that. And so this is the kind of level of practice that is very rare in the world. It's very rare in the world. It's very rare in the coaching industry. It's very, very rare in the leadership industry, to the extent there's a leadership industry. But if you think of most leaders that you have worked with in corporate settings, how often do you get to witness them being given feedback, being corrected, being supported to see something different as they're practicing leadership? Or go even one step further, how, like a little more abstract, how often do you get to see them model receiving leadership? Actually seeing them get supported, actually seeing them get trained? I would assert that that's super, super, super rare. More often our experience is that people go away maybe, and they tell us that they've done something, and then they come back and they're all excited to give us this new juicy leadership that they've just learned, and then they try to deliver it to us. And we never got to see any of the work that happened or, you know, any of that. So super grateful for our guest today. Really excited to bring that forward. And we'll kick that off shortly. Before we do, let me, as I always do, share a little bit about what's been alive for me this past week. So bear with me here. Yeah, clear that throat. So I'm fresh back from, I was sitting in ceremony with ayahuasca this past weekend, which I'm very excited about. As many of you know, I've been studying with this medicine for quite a number of years now, starting in, I think, 2019. And there was a period about 2 years ago where I was down in Costa Rica teaching classes on how to work with this, how to integrate this medicine, and sitting in ceremony a lot, you know, maybe 13 weeks out of the year. About 2 years ago, I was down there. So it's a lot of ceremonies. It's a lot of sitting with this medicine. And once Bay's mom passed away, that all came down to very little. And so it's been few and far between as I've had the opportunity to sit with this teacher. And I've been looking locally to find teachers because traveling to Costa Rica is awesome. And I love that country and I love the teachers that I have down there, and they're very wise and have provided tremendous amount of growth for me. But there's something to be said about, you know, the sustainability of flying down and back to Costa Rica, you know, every third week. That has an impact on the planet. And one of the things I notice about, I guess I'll call it our ego, is it's really good at sort of justifying the stuff that would be, we'd rather not really take a look at. So it can say something like, well, you know, yeah, there's an impact to that, but it's making you be a better person. And then as a better person and a better leader, you can support other people, and then that will unfold. And then collectively, Here comes Pongo. You see him in the door right there? Look at that. He's like, what the hell's happened? Yeah, I'm coming in. Great. Anyhow, collectively, then we'll all be more sustainable because we've done this healing and this transformational work and blah, 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 blah. And that is lovely, but there's a simpler truth to that, which is the truth is flying that much is not good for the planet. And I'm committed to walking this walk as opposed to just talking it. So I've been looking for teachers more locally. And so really, really quickly, one of the things that was really present for me during this last ceremony was I've been doing a lot of work to sit in low bandwidth states. So the kind of the stereotypical version of that would be, oh, look, I'm meditating, but I'm practicing doing something different than what I would probably typically do, which is carve out 10 minutes a day to meditate. And then I can be like, look, I checked it on the spreadsheet, right? That box says I meditated over there. I did it. I am doing it. Instead, I'm practicing cultivating a way of life or a way of being in my life ongoingly that is more meditative. So what that's meant is I think I shared this last week, letting podcasts go, letting TV go, letting video games go. And God damn it, there's a brand new video game out, Slay the Spire 2, that I really want to play, but I'm practicing letting that just sit over here for a little bit and allowing myself to sit with what shows up when I take away all of that stimulus. So as I lower the incoming bandwidth, what shows up? And one of the things that I learned that I kind of distinguished for myself this past weekend was I was sitting on my mat in the darkness with my dumb thoughts. And my dumb thoughts were going all over the place and I was restless. I don't really think my thoughts are super smart and really cool, but it's funnier if I call them dumb thoughts. And so I was sitting there with my dumb thoughts and I was working with the medicine and looking at like, what's going on right now for me? What's alive for me? And what I could feel was there's a lot of energy alive for me. I feel restless, feel impatient because there's energy that I want to put towards something and there's nothing in this moment to put it towards. And as I sat with that feeling, I asked myself, who did I become as a result of this experience? Because if you want, you can trace most of this back to like, how do I feel in this moment? And then who did I learn to become in my life as a result of this feeling? How did I learn to manage this feeling that is showing up for me right now? And what I realized is I learned to become energetically fat. Maybe a more apt way to describe it is energetically saturated. So I would consume a lot. I would eat a lot of sugar. I would watch a lot of TV. I would drink a lot of booze. I would on and on and on and on. The system would be sort of like, man, this moment's cool, but what if I was also stoned and masturbating and eating a cookie? Like, then the moment would be super cool. And what that does is it creates like a layer of, fat or of whatever through which my energy can't fully come forward. And then I don't have to be present to the restlessness, the impatience, the fact that I'm holding a bunch of energy that has nowhere yet to be expressed. So it's a really subtle and really sophisticated strategy that I created quite young, obviously not consciously. I didn't think this is too much. How do I manage it? It just came about. It evolved with me as I learned to adapt to this underlying feeling. And so that's been really cool because that's been the practice that I've been in, is letting myself feel the discomfort of having a lot of energy that's ready to be expressed, to go somewhere, to be put towards something, but not actually forcing that, not actually disconnecting from it and shutting it down, and not actually eating or consuming or filling myself full of stuff so that that energy then becomes blunted and dulled. And that's the edge that I'm learning how to work with, to hold. To stay open in the tension that creates rather than collapsing it by either disconnecting or by, consuming, filling the stuff in. So pretty cool ceremony. And really exciting for me because one of the things I've been looking for is an opportunity to bridge the two worlds I walk of more traditional Western transformational work, ontological coaching, the sort of work we're going to see today, and the more traditional indigenous work, ayahuasca, plant medicines, that kind of wisdom. And I think that there might be an opportunity here. So I'm in the exploration phase of that. I'll share more about that as time goes on, but yeah, it was really exciting, really cool weekend. Okay, have a sip here. So our guest today, I'm going to talk briefly and then we'll bring him on. We've got Pete Kadushin as our coach. Pete's a member of the Forge. Has been working with us for 6 months. Incredible guy, ridiculous sense of humor. You're going to love him. And he's bringing on Chris McAdoo or I don't know. I'm not going to let them come on stage. I'm just going to mispronounce their names for a little bit before I bring them on. So I've done that. I successfully mispronounced their name. Let's bring them onto the stage now so that they can defend themselves. Hello.
We made it.
Yes, you did. Yes.
That was a McAdoozy.
There we go.
McAdoozy, yeah.
It is McAdoo. So if you're familiar with the old Roger Miller song, McAdoo, McAdoo, that's the pronunciation, which definitely makes me relevant if there is a younger audience,
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah.
I feel like 70s singer-songwriter country artists are kind of in now. And so, that's what I hope we get to talk about that. Right.
It's good to like, you want that niche to be like a mile deep and an inch wide.
There you go.
We're establishing that. We're also, I noticed this is a gathering of 3 men who have distinctive nicknameable last names. All 3 of us have very like last names that, did you guys get nicknamed somehow via your last name? Was that part of your growing up?
Unfortunately, yes.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Chris?
I did.
Yes.
Luckily, my last name is also a nickname because it sounds, like you would make it up. So it's worked out.
Yeah, I got called Quiney a whole bunch.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't mind it. Took some adaptation, but okay. So let's dive in here. Pete, you're going to be coaching Chris, and Chris has informed us that he's not spilled the tea yet. So you're coming in
flying blind.
That's right. Yeah. What is this Leviathan you're going to explore? I'm going to, I'll turn my mic off, but I'm going to stay on camera. Are you guys all right with that? Okay, perfect. And I'm going to turn it over to you in a sec, but any questions before we kick off?
Golden.
Ready to rumble.
I get to just chill then. All right. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Pete, and then I'll just interrupt at my leisure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Nice.
Away we go, and over to you, Pete.
All right, Chris, welcome.
Well, thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for having me on. Excited to get coached, in a way that I think is, high level, crush my skull a little bit, open it up, and then let the brains pour out.
Well, and I got to tell you, you're a particular kind of crazy to sign up for something like this. And you also set the land speed record when I put the call out. It was like 18 seconds after I sent the email. You were like, let's make it happen, Captain.
Well, and this may, kind of come into our conversation as well. But oftentimes when you spend your time around people that are smarter than you, you're sort of continually coaching others, you're consulting, but you very rarely get the chance to have that mirror pointed back. Mm-hmm. And so when you sent that email, I was like, you know what? I can use a little of my own medicine. So I was excited to be a part of it.
Beautiful. Well, 70s singer-songwriters and country artists aside, what are we talking about today? So,
yeah. And I mean, we can always talk about Roger Miller, Don Williams, Charlie Rich. But today, I think it's probably better to talk about, let me give you a little bit of background and maybe give the listeners a little bit of background. And I think I have been described and defined as what's called a multi-passionate, which means there are 1,000 directions that one can go, right? And so I've lived a very fortunate life in that I've been able to be an artist, an entrepreneur, sold a business, consulted with hundreds of companies, helped people raise money, work with all, and everything is interesting. To me, as I'm sure some of the people here are listening, like everything is interesting. So one of the hardest things for me is as a human, but then also as someone building a business, a platform, a product, all that, is actually figuring out what are the things that, sort of based on the life I want to live and the person that I want to become, and the communities and family that I want to serve. How do I focus when everything is exciting and everything is, it seems like, oh man, this could be really cool. So I tend to, I will overcommit myself for others, but then undercommit to my own sort of self-development or self-care, if you were. And so figuring out how to balance that while then also growing, growing a business.
Thanks for presencing all of that. I can feel the energy that you bring with all of this. And that's true. We've met a couple of times, once in person, and it's like plugging into the mainframe when you're with you.
Thank you.
Within all of that, where would we focus? Because there's a lot of different components that you threw out.
Well, my life has spent, let me say this. My biggest strength is probably also my biggest weakness, and that is an intense awareness of where I fit. And so I enjoy being the artist in a room of scientists, but also enjoy being the business person in a room of artists. And how do I build that, like, I guess, balance, right? If you're talking to somebody like me that does, I run pretty hot. I burn a lot of boats, is for somebody like me, how in the world do I start to think about my time, attention, and intention differently to try to move forward with more purpose?
Yeah, so I'd heard you describe balance. Focus kind of was the opening header for what the topic you wanted to explore. And then getting into time, attention, and intention. We still on the right track?
We are.
Yeah, cool. Given that, what would you want to get out of today? We've got about 90 minutes with Adam's interruptions.
I'll tell you what. So, like many, how do I say? I'm trying to say this in the way that makes the most sense. I'm an outside cat. And so, like I said, I built a business. I then went on to help run a nonprofit organization for several years. And now I'm back in the woods again, out there, killing what I eat and really, really, really enjoying it. That is my natural state. And so what I would love, what would be a win for me is to figure out, even in a big sense, what's a domino that would help other dominoes fall? Because I'm bringing on, say I have an executive assistant, I have partners in, all of this kind of stuff. And what are some of the steps and ways that somebody like me can think about what's important now versus what's important, in 3 months, 6 months down the road? I think that would be super helpful to say, like, you know what, on Monday, I'm going to think about this differently and act accordingly.
So what's important now as opposed to 3 months or 6 months?
Sure.
So some flavor of priorities, and then how that ties back to time, attention, intention.
Yeah. Priorities. Yeah.
How will we know that we've hit the bullseye when we hop off live?
I think that we will know it if I do it. I mean, like, I know that sounds really kind of silly, but it's really easy to say, here's this 10-step process to become a blank. But all too often we forget about that first step of just do this. And so sometimes it's that first step that trips me up, because I get excited about all 10 steps and I try to do them all at once. Right. And what you end up with is, like, a thing may be awesome, but it was more stressful than necessary, or it didn't turn out the way, all of those things. So I think the biggest Yeah, the biggest key to that success is if we have this conversation and then on Monday I go and do the thing.
Mm. So we'll do a Where Are They Now follow-up episode to check in on whether or not you did the thing. And
Sure.
by the end of this call, how would you know we've moved the football down the field?
I will let you know if I have a heightened awareness. Like if you make me think about a thing in a way that I haven't before, if I see a perspective that rather than opens up, but refines and defines something, I'll let you know immediately.
Mhm.
I'll be like, oh wow, that makes this simpler to understand, not harder. I'm all in, and I'll
Mhm.
let you know.
So you'll notice I'm being a bit of a pain in the ass, but that's actually my job right now. Because I'm really gonna pull you back around to we're talking about priorities. And then I said, how will you know that we've moved the football down the field, made progress towards being able to do something different? And you said, well, I'll let you know if my awareness has shifted. And so those things may connect. I'm not sure. And if
Okay,
they do, can you explain how? And if not, how will we know that we've moved the football down the field?
gotcha. Man, this is hard.
Mm.
This is good. Well, you know what? You know what's interesting is I don't have a vehicle to answer you.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be honest, because I'm in your seat most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I'm the one in this hot seat, I have not developed. Yeah, like I'll just be honest. I don't have a way to say, like, this is how I'll know.
Yeah.
So that's good. There you go. See, you got one.
And check this out. So then my job when we get to I don't know, instead of doing the similar thing that you just did, which is like, well, I'm going to fill in the space. My job is to just pause here for a second and then leave a little bit of dead space and then see what comes up when we're thinking about how would you know that we'd made progress towards being able to do something different around priorities.
Mm-hmm. And it's my job to respond at this point. I'm just making sure how the rules work here. So I'm returning to that question of how that space or how that makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Dig harder. I'm still right.
All right.
Like keep going because I don't have a great answer for you.
Yeah. Before I ask, pepper you with more questions, a different question. What's the experience like for you right now in the moment when you hit the I don't know? Mind, body, spirit.
Yeah. It is a feeling of yeah, it's an interesting feeling of stress. Of when you're normally in a position where like I normally am in a position where at least it looks like at least it looks like from a distance I know the answer. And so when I legitimately don't, and then there's no deflection to it, it's pretty stressful.
Mm.
Because in the end, I'm realizing now too that like I'm the one responsible for the answer. There's no one that I can turn to my side and say like, oh, here, speak to my chief scientist or whatever. So it's stressful in a way that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first, you're doing great. And especially with being held in that spot that feels stressful, there's tension, right? You're doing great. I appreciate you showing up willing to play.
There you go. Well, if you've ever done, for anybody here who's in a relationship, if you've ever done love languages, mine is words of affirmation because I'm more of a Labrador retriever. And so being told that I'm doing a good job is helpful.
You're doing a great job. I've been told that I'm a golden retriever and my love language is Frisbee.
Nice.
So we'll come back to this idea of how do we know we've done it? I guess I'm curious because you talked a little bit about how things usually go. You've got a ton going on. Sometimes it's tough to find balance. how would you like things to be different when you think about priorities? You know, it's Monday and you're getting ready to do the thing. What would you want it to be like?
And I'm going to jump in here so you'll have some time to think about that, Chris.
Go for it.
Cool. Oh, this is awesome to watch. I'm really enjoying this. So Pete, how is this going so far for you?
I can notice the tension over here in wanting it to be a positive experience for Chris.
Mm.
And going like, oh man, if I ask a similar question and I keep coming back to, hey, well, we didn't really answer that. And it'll be tough to do anything or make progress if we don't answer that. So kind of feeling that tension in myself of like, well, I'm coming back to that thing again. And I caught myself qualifying it, being like, well, my job is to be an asshole. And here I go.
Uh-huh. 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 So was that qualification, like to some extent, managing the thing you just described? Like to sort of soften it, or?
I think knowing how Chris and I relate, that there was a little bit of, you know, that's rapport building when I can like pull the curtain back. But I also noticed that there's a little bit of, hey, don't be upset with me. And so it's a blended experience, I think.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, I can feel the same thing that you can feel. And you're doing really good because you're standing for something. You're standing for Chris to get really clear on, like, but how will we know?
Mm-hmm.
Which it kind of makes a lot of sense, because part of what your client has shared is that they're reliable to hold like a million ball. These are my words, not theirs, right? But manage a lot of balls in the air, work with multi-passionate kind of inner experience, and then go where it goes. So of course the question you're asking is like, where specifically do you want to go? That's going to run counter to that way of being that was just described. So of course we'd see some resistance and all of that showing up, and you're doing a really good job sitting in that. So it sounds like you're alive to the tension of that. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So I'm going to come back to this in a sec. What is the essence of your client in this moment? Like, what are you present to in your client's essence?
Yeah. Chris is passion.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is also brilliance.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is definitely presence.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely wit or playfulness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Those are the ones that are immediately very upfront and were like the moment I met him.
Yeah. Yeah. Nate. Yeah. They're like there in spades, right? And I would even, this is a little nuance that is not the most important thing, but like when you say presence, like the thing that came to mind for me was like magnetism or charisma. Like, homie is just delightful to be around. And what do you notice is happening in the conversation as you continue to stand for him through that lens?
Yeah, I can notice the combination of sort of the playfulness and some of the brilliance showing up to kind of create a little bit of like, I can put a lot of words to it. I can also make sure that I'm funny as that's happening. And then maybe I'm not still on the hook for the question. And the reason I can spot that really clearly is because I do that all the time too.
Right. Yeah. It's like you're coaching a mirror right now. Yeah. Along with all that magnetism and all of that stuff. And so I noticed that too. And what I'm present to is, as you continue to stand in this tension with your client is becoming more jovial, more charismatic, but it doesn't occur like that charisma or joviality is actually moving us closer towards the thing that they are striving to move towards. It seems more like a smokescreen a little bit. Not intentional, of course, and not bad. You know this. I'm saying this more for our audience than anything. And what I notice is it feels like that's pulling some of your charming funniness into the space too. Are you present to that at all?
No, I wasn't. I mean, I
Mm.
talked a little bit about the qualifier, and there was some humor in that space when it
Yeah.
came out. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of, not always, but in this particular conversation, sometimes what there is to do is to bring a little more gravity to the space.
Mm-hmm.
You can still find the person that you're working with hilarious, funny, delightful, but you might not bring so much of it out into the way you're expressing, so that it pulls us back down into, this word will sound a little too heavy, but almost the gravity
Mm-hmm.
that you're inviting, because you're inviting a degree of gravity here, right? A degree of like potency, of purpose, of going towards a particular thing. And so one piece of feedback I have is you might just be alive to your own playfulness, joviality. And am I getting into that dance with the client where it can be like really fun and joyful and you're laughing and it's all fine and good. And at the end, you say nice things about the conversation, but did it actually really move the needle? And the
Yeah.
thing I'm really interested in is, what is there for Chris to be with if he sets aside that that charmingness, that fun, playful, witty side? What is there here to actually sit in? So that's
Mm-hmm.
one question that's just alive for me. I've got a few other small pieces. Do you have space for them?
I do.
Okay, great. Um, I love that your client got to sort of like, not knowing. And then you were asking, how is this for you? And he started like, yeah, a little stressful. So one, that's the place to be, right? Because that's outside of his edge. Being charming and playful and funny and brilliant, totally comfortable to your client. And so you want to hang out there. And there's lots of places and ways you could explore that. You could explore it sort of like, so what typically happens when you're present to that feeling?
Mm-hmm.
What is it like? What is reliable to happen from here? What's predictable going to happen from here? But the thing that you want to make sure you do is that you remain present to where you're trying to get to at this point in the conversation, which is, so what do you want to leave with?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you want to create in your life? And the last thing is, you said, how will we know when we've hit the bullseye? And he said, I will go and do it. What is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. You're alive to that too.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Last thing I'm going to say is Jewel, our friend Jules, just came in. Hello, Jules. Great to have you with us, saying loving and relating with the quote unquote multi-passionate Chris and the space you're holding through the dance of these interests, all vying for priority, Pete. So thank you for being here, Jewel.
Yeah.
I'll turn it back over to you two. I'm out.
All right, Chris.
Pete.
Well, welcome back. I'm not
Coaches,
gonna go ahead.
Oh, just so if someone is from my feed has come on here, this is Pete and Adam coaching me. So it's coaches, coaching coaches, coaching coaches. Just so it's not just a conversation. It's a very active process here, which I find to be really interesting. It was fun to sit back and see that kind of unfold. Anyway, so there you go.
Yeah, I was gonna ask because I wasn't gonna have you pretend that you didn't hear all of that. Is there anything that stands out to you having listened to Adam and I go back and forth?
Yeah. For one, no, it makes you feel nice when somebody talks nice about you. But to speak very specifically, one of the things that I talk about with people all the time is this, like, if this makes sense, one of the things I'm most proud of is that particular brand of charisma does not stand on its own and doesn't stay with me. It rubs off on others. So every stage that I stand on, every person that I work with, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that experience is better than it could have been. And so I feed into that role very well, right? That being said, since we're coaching, let's do this, which you were talking about, pulling charm, pulling those things out of people is a superpower of mine. And I love it because it gets people, But if you wanted to go, we're not exactly going to go ayahuasca on the top of a mountain, meaningful, but part of that is a defense mechanism, right? Like, so, I mean, again, like a lot of people out there, there is no particular path that we all take. So growing up, grew up on a farm out in the middle of nowhere. I didn't reach, I think I didn't break 5 feet tall until Christmas of my freshman year of high school. So I was tiny. I was mean as a snake. I was funny. And that was what allowed me to get through, right? Like it allowed me this mechanism, because I wasn't going to be the quarterback on the football team, all that kind of stuff. It allowed me this mechanism, and it is something that has carried me through my entire life. Now I'm at this point where I think, Adam, you had said something about, does that playfulness sometimes, like I rely on it so much, does it get in the way of the effectiveness of what I'm trying to do? Right. And the same thing there. And I think that it does. And since we're going into it, it made me think of the, if you guys or your listeners are familiar with the writer Gay Hendricks, he introduces a thing that I have one of his mantras that I say every day. But he introduces the upper limit problem, which is like, use that sort of zone of genius kind of thing, in that, I think sometimes I'm terrified of what this particular life looks like if it works. Right? Because I'm used to taking risks. I'm used to doing things that other people would be very uncomfortable doing. But at the same time, I think I'm operating at a consistent B average at best. And that's an upper limit problem that is that's sort of a what do you call it on a car? A governor, right? Like your speed is limited by the machine, and I feel like there are times when I put my own governor on. Maybe sometimes I don't even know it, right? And that's well beyond. Right? Yeah.
I just want to first say that your brilliance is in the space, right? To be able to distinguish all of that, to share it out. To notice some of the ways you might get in your own way. And so just want to acknowledge, you said words of affirmation. I want to acknowledge that a lot of people can't do what you just did. And what does that have to do with what we're trying to accomplish today?
Man, I don't know. You're the coach, man. You should put me out on the field, bro. I don't No, I think that if it all comes down to it, is that balance. We talked about balance, priorities, focus, time, and attention. And that, I don't know. What does that have to do with today? I think it has everything to do with today. Because if I recognize and have that self-awareness, it also leads to self-deprecation. It also leads to essentially, we're going to talk about older country music now, but if you're familiar with Bill Monroe, he has a song called Don't Get Above Your Raisin. And there's something about a Presbyterian style work ethos that has been both a provider for me of a like, pick up the shovel and get to work. Right. Which speaks to like when I said, hey, I'll know this works if I do it. Because I don't like for things to live in theory. But a lot of that is, the tall poppy theory, essentially, that like, if the poppy gets too high, it gets cut down. And I feel like that's probably something that regardless of how much forward motion I would have, if I don't deal with that, then I'll always be moving at a speed that's not what I'm entirely capable of.
And so you can see that your relationship to priorities, balance, that might be part of the governor, it sounds like. Well, a lot of what we've talked about is in the world of what's familiar. And I'm wondering if this was going to be different. On Monday, you did something different around priorities. What would that look like? How would you want it to look?
I'm going to jump in there again, Chris.
Go for it.
What would you say, Pete, the central theme is right now of the conversation we're in? Like if you were to, headline it or AI summary of it. Wow, what a great conversation. Here is the
Oh, GPT it. Pete, you did it again. You did it again. This is
so I think that priorities, my hunch is that priorities are a content thing, and that this has more to do with the discussion around the governor and not feeling like Chris is getting the most out of himself. And that priorities or time, attention, intention is a bit of a symptom of that. And I guess I'm still just trying to be really rigorous around getting clear on what we're trying to accomplish. And I'm struggling with, is it my agenda if I pull it up into a different space instead of go with what he's asked about?
Got it. Okay, great. Where are we trying to get to in this conversation?
I'm still trying to figure it out.
Perfect. I would say that's the headline of this conversation right now. Is we don't know where we're trying to get to. And then the subline, the byline of it is, and here's a bunch of fascinating stuff that does not answer the question on top. So your clients got replete with wisdom and brilliance and quotes from interesting authors and song titles that could be really dirty or really fascinating, but are certainly hilarious to hear. All of that stuff is alive. But it's sort of it's obfuscating where are we trying to get to. And so I just want to offer two things on that. One, it's not your agenda to try to figure out or to stand for what does the client want. That's a commitment to get clear on the client's agenda. So ironically, almost anything we try to do that's sort of to avoid being pushy or anything towards that actually becomes our agenda. It has to, because we don't yet know what the client actually truly wants. The second thing is that in this kind of deep transformational work that you two are currently in, what happens is the client brings something and then they show up the exact same way they show up in their lives that is creating the thing that they want to be coached on. So we're seeing right now kind of part of the experience I'm going to assert that your client creates for themselves. And so part of our work as coach is almost to get sort of into that. It's like the wave crashes over you and you're getting spun through and you're like, oh crap. And it takes us a moment to sort of like, what the heck's oh, right. Okay, this is how it is. And then your job's to stand up, to get your head up out of that and kind of realize, oh, okay, this is part of the process to continue standing for that thing that is there. That makes sense? Cool. Any questions before I bow back out?
Nope.
Dope. Later.
Thank goodness he's gone.
Yeah. Get out of here, nerd. I don't know.
So Chris, here we are again.
Yes.
And so I'll refocus us on the question of what would you like to change given our conversation today?
Well, okay, let me ask you to help me define what you mean by change and in what direction. Because are we talking about, like, from what you know about me and the conversation that we've had, do you feel like my answer needs to be more, this is where I want to focus my business. This is where I want to take and focus my life. This is how I want, I would love to hear what you think I'm not answering so far. Does that make sense? Sort of?
Yeah, I can feel the pull back into sort of, let's be vague. It could go this way or it could go that way.
Yep.
There isn't a right or a wrong direction. This is your time, and my job is to help you move towards something. And so it's a change in action. It's a change in experience. And it doesn't really matter if it's personal life, professional life, someplace else. And if we don't choose then we won't get there on purpose.
Here's okay. You just okay. Let me tell you something that, and I think there's probably, again, for the folks that are listening from my audience, again, this is, Adam and Pete. Pete is a clinical psychologist, right? PhD. You're a PhD. What is your PhD?
In sport and exercise psychology, but not an IST.
Okay. Oh, okay. And so we're coaches, coaching coaches. And one of the things that, I've been talking about is all these different sort of multi-passionate things, which now I can feel myself pulling out into that vagueness. But here's where it all comes together. And it's a sports analogy, which is nice. Presence. Regardless of if it's professional, if it's personal, if it's spiritual, if it's mental, I feel like I'm always, I'm like it's like I'm the running back. You've gotten the perfect throw, and I have taken the ball, but instead of getting that rock and holding it and being present with it, I've already imagined going and getting the touchdown, which means I am, do you know what I mean? Like my attention is constantly what's next. My attention is constantly divided between sort of this is great, and I want to be fully present in this particular moment. But what's over there?
Mm-hmm.
Or if I do this thing, I think a lot of times I have a big problem in sitting and being in a man, this is, I want to shut everything off and just be in this place. And again, that's professional, that's personal, that's everything. But it's like playing checkers with your kids or something like that. Like winning checkers isn't the point. The point is playing checkers with your kids. And so I think there's something that is probably it traverses everything of I got to figure out how to hold that rock first, then go. So it's how do you press pause? How do you pay attention to the things that matter in a moment?
I'm going to ask you to press pause and pay attention to what's here as a way of practicing.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like to name that in your whole system?
Can you further when you say what is that like? Can you give me a roadmap to define what you mean by that?
Thoughts, feelings, body sensations.
Oh yeah. I would say a sense of it's that heightened awareness. It is a heightened awareness and a reminder that I've been running at that speed for so long that I would have no idea what to do if I wasn't. And it's like a sense of uncomfortableness, and I'm fine. I could talk about it all day long,
mm-hmm.
right? Like I'm not the vulnerability part of it is not the issue. It's more of a, it's more of an idea. If I'm not activating that part of that sort of jungle brain that sees the rustling in the bushes from all angles, that I'm not fully protecting my family, or I'm not fully protecting myself for my work or those kind of things. And sort of, it's a terrifying, actually, yeah, no, it's a super terrifying thought to think of slowing down. But at the same time, I want to slow down. So you can it's like your own brain. I have become my own worst enemy in that respect. And so within that, yeah, there's an uncomfortableness. There's a fear of.
Can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Because you named talking vulnerable, feeling different from actually kind of settling into it. And so how do you know, other than the thinking, that there's some fear or resistance or discomfort here?
When I think about that, well, no, I think there's there's a little bit of a physical sensation of a that tiger, that the front of your brain that's like, hey, there's a rustling. And so I have now created a rustling in the woods for myself to talk about. And so there is a bit of a physical, like, something's different now feeling.
Yeah.
And that's yeah.
I was just going to affirm the work you're doing, right? And the willingness to pause or to answer a question multiple times. So thank you again for showing up and being willing to go to that place that is uncomfortable.
Pete, on a scale of 1 to 10, whereas 10 is like, holy crap, this guy's like not wearing pants, and 1 is like, fully comfortable, could not be more safe. What number, this isn't about what's real for Chris, but like, what is your experience of your client in terms of vulnerability?
Yeah, I'm getting like a 3.
Got it.
Ish.
Uh-huh. Got it. And what are you doing with that when you're having that experience?
I'm curious about it because it doesn't seem to match how Chris is reporting out what his experience is.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I circled around and said, outside of the thinking, where might you notice that? Is that present?
So this might be the point where you want to bring a little more directness about it.
Mm-hmm.
So just own, it's interesting. There's a disconnect here. I hear you using the words, talking about vulnerability, but for me, it feels like, this. You might even check in with your client just to get their feel, like, hey, where are you at, first of all, and then explore that disconnect to the thing it's real. Where's this conversation going?
This conversation's now exploring presence.
But is that where we're trying to get to by the end of it?
I haven't gotten all the way to how will we know that we're doing it.
Perfect. Okay, great. I'm just asking that to represence that. Yes. Yeah. Amazing. And then the last thing I would say is your client is very good at speaking pretty about things like vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, there was an opportunity to be a little bit more direct in that moment. And I can spot it because I got it. Right? I can say a lot of things that are vulnerable without ever actually allowing the impact in.
Right.
And so I could feel some of that in the space. And I'm wondering, as you hear that reflected back, I could hear you going, oh, wow, okay. And so what's alive for you? And actually, before I have you answer that question, can I invite you to take on a practice for the rest of today?
Sure.
So after I ask a question, would you be willing to pause for 3 seconds before you answer it?
Yes.
Aha.
There you go.
So the question being, hearing that disconnect reflected back to you. And then, we'll leave it there. What's alive for you in that?
It's really interesting to be called to task for all of the things that you pride yourself on having built a core response in a life around. It's interesting to see. I mean, you guys are pros, so I get this, but I can talk about this stuff all day, right? But to your point, Adam, and to your point, I can talk about it all day without actually doing the thing, and I can feel it. And so I think it is more of a 3 out of a 10. And part of that comes from like the thing that feeling of my life. It's like if you take it like this, over in my art world, I like to say a thing called make messes and tell stories. Meaning I know what I am, and I'm like, I apologize in advance. This is going to get messy, but it's going to make for great stories. But over here in sort of like business world, it's my job. It's literally my job to provide and help others find clarity, to solve problems rather than bring them. and to bring solutions rather than more questions. Or even like, that's not exactly right, but it's more like even guiding people towards asking the right questions. So I have an automatic guard when I feel like I'm making something harder for someone. That's what it feels like. Is like there's a blinder there for me that says like, man, if I don't answer this question in a certain way, this is going to make it hard for Pete. Just like you were sort of like, you know what I mean? Like, and that is where this is interesting for me, that goes up. And that it's just not in my mind to create a problem for someone. It's in my mind to help them work through it. And so I feel that guard going up, but I don't know. There's your pull quote.
Chris, can you notice that you're doing it as you're doing it?
Yep, absolutely.
Right
1000%.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think it's an athletic, it's a muscle that you train just as much as anything. And I can feel it. But yeah, it doesn't. Yeah.
How does that connect back to your goal of wanting to be more present?
Does it sort of remind me that a lot of the times I'm thinking of, and you'll have to excuse me to sort of like give a long answer to a short question.
You're doing great.
But here's what we're doing right here. And I think this is interesting because it's live and we're going to an audience and it will be on a podcast. One thing I teach people when I talk about speaking and everything is that every time you are on a stage, you are taking someone's time. And that if you are going to take that time, then every second and every minute of it has to be better than the time they would have spent otherwise. And so right now I'm on stage. And so would this conversation be different if we were like not recording it? Probably. But I think that it's almost everything in my monkey mind. It's like, this is where you do your thing. And it won't turn off. Those lights will not turn off.
Would it be supportive of
Let
me to...
Let me jump in. Let me jump in really quick. And I trust you've got a direction, but so what did you just hear, like contextually? Because you've been working with this art.
Yeah. The starting to hear some themes around where the bar gets set for Chris. And in particular, what stood out just now was like every second I'm in the spotlight needs to be better than any other second they'd be spending anywhere else. And that would have reliable consequences in terms of actions and then the world that gets created around that.
Yeah, nice. A few other things, not right, or not that yours is wrong or anything, but like some other just things I'm noticing. So what I heard was, here's why this is going the way it's going, or here's why I'm showing up the way I'm showing up. Cool. The way we show up will always be justified, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. We're not idiots. And you're dealing with a brilliant client, so he's even less of an idiot. And so then the question is like, is that how you want it to go right now? So that there's choice available. Yeah. I trust the path you were going to take. I just wanted to pull in this moment just to look at the context that just got revealed there. You guys are doing amazing work. I'm going to jump back out.
So Chris, I notice something and I'd like to put it into the space and then get your thoughts on it. I notice that when I ask a question, it gets pulled out into the stories, and sometimes that's justification, and sometimes that's quotes around music and things like that. But it pulls it out of like the immediate moment. And I would submit that it pulls it out of presence and out into the other stuff. I'm wondering how that lands for you in our steps towards being more present in the space.
I think it lands in a way. What it is, man. Those stories are such a part of me. So let me. It's sort of, and I don't, and I was about to go down a road, like I'm catching myself because I'll obfuscate, but I feel like if I'm going to be here in this moment, I have such a sort of a connection to the things that I share, that I feel like those make up what, like, that sometimes I need to remind myself that I've got those things to share, because sometimes I need to remind myself of that, like, individuality, right? What am I bringing? But when it comes to sort of personally in that moment, I don't know if I have a vehicle to talk about that, right? Like I'm trying to think about, like, I may not have a way to describe that.
Yeah, we're standing on the edge then.
There we go. Okay.
So instead of driving further down the rabbit hole blindly, I want to come back to your request around presence.
Mm-hmm.
And see, what would it mean for you? What would be available for you if you were able to be more present?
I feel like if I was able to be more present, it would be a hell of a lot less stressful for other people. And when I say other people, I mean my family. Like, I get that I am a whirling dervish, and I understand, and I try to work through that. But I think that I don't even know it sometimes, but I probably, and I don't mean to do it, right? But I'm not there. I'm 90% there, but I'm not 100% there. And what does that mean? I don't. That's where I sort of lose that. I sort of lose some of that language around what it means to go from 90 to 100 or 80 to 90.
And if you already knew, then we wouldn't really be in a space that's alive. Right? Or maybe you'd already be doing it.
Right.
And so it would be less stressful for others. Mm-hmm. What else?
I'll tell you the most interesting thing, and I'm going to go to a story. I broke the 3-second rule.
I mean, I don't have any recourse to punish you.
Well, I just restarted and it was 3 seconds. So I do want to follow that rule because I think it's a good one. But I am going to relate a story because I think that it is helpful as an illustration. In that I had a conversation, recently. Everybody goes through stressful times, both personally, professionally, all these kind of things. And so, a few years ago, just like everybody, our family had a stressful situation around a personal matter. But my wife, God bless her heart, can stop thinking about something. And so she explained to me, because I have a lot of anxiety and everything's always at the top and everything's always boiling. But it was really interesting because one day I was like, man, how can you, just sit down and focus? She's wonderful and smarter than me, and just a wonderful person. And she's just like, oh, I just stopped thinking about that thing, and I think about this thing I need to do. I'm like, I do not have a comparison chart for that. The way that I talk about a brain, and maybe this is ADHD, maybe this is just general, is that every single thing is like Santa's bag of toys for me. It is always on my shoulder. It is always there. There is no,
Well, so
I'll stop thinking,
I'm going to hop in here because
for it.
we would be unpacking Santa's bag of toys. And you started to get towards an answer to the question.
Okay.
And then we started going off.
The question. Yeah.
So around that, what would be available to you, or what would be valuable about being more present? So less stressful for others. And what was the headline of the story you were telling?
Silence. Silence. My brain is never quiet. And I'm never in that space where it's just whatever is happening in that moment. And I have that's it. What makes the noises stop? And if not stop, what brings some to the top and quiets others?
What would be available for you on the other side of more silence or different relationship to the sounds in your head?
Two answers. One is a story answer, which is, I believe I could get into that. I could break through that upper limit problem. But the real answer is, I have no idea, Pete. I have absolutely no idea. I have thoughts in my mind of like what that might look like, but I don't know.
Well, and the question I ask is because it's counter the way you experience life now. And it would require you to be and arrive differently. And when we do that, we run into resistance. It's outside of the status quo. And so I'm asking about the pot of gold on the other side of the wall, because us as human beings we're reliable to, even if we get partway up the wall, eventually go, you know what, this thing's steep and it's annoying and I don't know who rubbed it down with grease. And so we need the pot of gold on the other side. And so even if you don't quite know, it sounds like you have some ideas. Like, what would the experience of life be like? What would be available at home or at work if your relationship to the noise in your head was different?
I believe that I would have a much easier time saying no to more things. I believe I would have the ability to, if you think about the mixture of maker versus manager time, I believe I would more effectively be able to say that this is my protected maker time. And when I say maker, I don't necessarily mean just being out in the studio making art or making music or something. I mean, like, it could be business ideas, but it's creative. And then to be able to say during that maker time, that's what this is for. And then, personally, also to be able to just be in that sort of space with people without the guilt of feeling that you're not doing something else. And then over here in this manager time is admin, when admin in life, right? Like, is being able to go to the grocery store or doing the things that normal people do every day. And then in business, it's business stuff. And I feel like having a delineation of being able to just say, hey, this maker time is sacred and I'm not going to mess with it and I'm not going to apologize for it. And at the same time, being able to go into here in admin and manager time and say, without this stuff doesn't happen. And let me throw something. Okay, hold on. Let me throw some. Can I throw something at you, or like you going on? You got a path to go down here because I don't want to.
I can't promise I'll catch it, but you can throw.
All right. I can throw a decent arm. I still have a year of NCAA eligibility. Okay, so my thought around that mixture of maker versus manager is that there is almost, and I've talked about this with people before, but there is an insurmountable guilt that I feel over not having the ability to do normal things.
Would you want it to be different? Because that sounds heavy.
I would like that. Yeah, actually, yeah, that would be great if I did not feel that. And can I give an example just to,
Yeah.
it's like being on a show, for instance, on a Friday afternoon that I do not know what is going to happen, where I'm going to be sharing my feelings with, it could be 10, it could be 10,000 people. I have no idea. Fine. Good to go. Adam, if being part of this show made me fill out a form first, I don't know if it would have ever happened. And so there's something there that makes me feel in these instances where I feel like I can thrive, I really thrive. But over here in normal person land, where like my wife asks me, like, did you pay that one? Did you pick up the dog's meds? Your only job is to keep the dog alive. And I'm like, I forgot. Right.
Yeah.
And you feel as I am a creative person over here, and you start to feel this guilt of just like not being able to do these things that like normal humans can do.
Yeah.
And
so I do want to,
yeah.
because you gave me a yeah, and then you were able to really put a specific, and I'm sure there are many other examples that would go with it. So with the time we have left, we probably have 9-ish minutes.
Yeah.
Four.
What's that?
We have 4 minutes.
4 minutes.
We have 4-ish minutes. Then I'd like to get it into the space where we could explore practice.
Okay.
You were able to name presence. You were able to name that you'd be able to say no more frequently. You'd have clearer boundaries between your maker and manager time. People around you would have less stress. What would it look like to practice in the space of more presence for you?
To be determined in terms of action. But let me say this, and it feels like I'm circling back on storytelling and things like that. But in the same way that I want people to feel like if we spend time together, that they leave that time knowing that they've spent it the best possible and that they're leaving 10% better, I would like to have that same language for myself. Right? Like to develop a practice of saying, if I'm going to be there for others in that way, how do I also mirror that to my own experience? Is like, how do I show up? How do I feel 10% better?
Mm-hmm.
How do I feel, moving towards that, rather than feeling this sort of unending guilt about not being able to fill out a form, of being able to say, like, all right, that's fine. But I think bringing some of that same joy, resourcefulness, and clarity to myself that I pride myself in bringing to others.
And so what would a practice look like? It can be as small as, it doesn't have to be monumental. In fact, it's better if it's a small step.
Yeah.
And if we don't attach some action to any of the awareness building or insight that took place today,
yep,
then Monday comes around, and then when we do our follow-up episode, where are you now? Probably won't have done it because you won't know what to have done.
Yeah. Oh. Actually, I'll throw this back to you. Give me a step.
So like you're tapping out. That's plead the fifth.
I'm pleading the fifth on it because I think I do several things that try to get me in that direction, but I kind of want to hear just a like after this conversation, we've spent our 89 minutes together. It's like with 30 seconds left, what would if we get done with this, I walk outside, what do you want me to do?
I could give you that. And what that would be is me generating practice that isn't alive for you necessarily. I'm happy to offer up some skills, whether it's here or after we finish up. And you named that there are a couple of things that you already do. Can you give me one of them in a sentence?
Yeah, it's actually from the Gay Hendricks book. Around, I forget the name of the book, but it's The Upper Limit Problem. And I wake up every morning and I say, good Lord, I only say it 10 times a day. I expand in joy, success, abundance, and love every day, and I inspire others around me to do the same. That's the first thing I say to myself when I wake up in the morning, and the last thing I say when I go to bed. That and the Lord's Prayer.
It's a long sentence, and
listen, bro,
a beautiful intention setting. Right, I'm wondering around presence in particular.
Even taking a few moments to sit in it.
You just did. In fact, we've been practicing presence throughout today. Never miss a good opportunity to practice in real time. And so having you check in with what your thoughts are like, having you check in with what your body is telling you, even the moment where you paused and reflected on, here's what I'm presenting in terms of vulnerability and terror, and here's what other people have said they're present to.
Yeah.
Like all of that was micro practices. How'd that land for you?
Makes me feel good.
Shit, I didn't do my job.
Makes me feel good. You did it, Pete. We did it. No, it makes me glad that well, a lot of times it is good to hear that if there is something, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it's already been done. And so even thinking about how to sit in this conversation, like it is very helpful, right? To sit in that space, to pay attention to it, and then to say it out loud, right?
Yeah. And so I have two more things for you, if time allows. The first is, what would you be willing to commit to around a practice like that? What, where, how often, that sort of thing.
I think that that sort of practice is it's something that I would have to do every day, if not every hour.
Well, not have to. What are you willing to commit to?
Yeah. Oh, I could think about that every day.
Can I offer one extra piece around the everyday? Yeah. Because your mode of operating often will pull you way out of this. It'll be easy to not do it every day or to do it at the end of the day and have to retrospect. You might leverage the joyful technology of our pocket computers and set a reminder that'll recur once a day or pop up once every hour that would allow you to tune in and just, hey, even if it's a 6-second pause, what's here right now?
Yeah.
So willing to commit to that?
I'm willing to commit to that.
Okay. Last thing I'd like to do is acknowledge you briefly. Are you open to me acknowledging you?
Yes.
So your only job right now is to trust that everything I say is true for me, even if it doesn't feel true for you.
Okay.
Chris, I want to acknowledge you for the love that I'm really present to. Right? We talked about a bunch of other qualities that you have in abundance, but I'm really present to your desire for other people's experience to be filled with joy and love and meaning, and then your commitment to being a force for that in the world.
Mhm.
And so that's really, really present for me. And underneath the jokes and underneath the brilliance, which are in service of that often, right? There is just a really clear, pure, like pool of that light that I can feel that radiates off of you. And so thanks for bringing that and sharing that with us today.
You're welcome. And I appreciate that.
Beautiful. Now we did it.
That was amazing, both of you. Thank you both so much for that. Really, really touched by what got created there. I want to, let's see. So I want to do a debrief together. So we'll start with you, Chris, then we'll go to Pete, and then I'll share what I noticed.
Okay.
And then we'll do, like, I just want both of you to have the opportunity to share anything that you're up to so that people know where to find you and learn more about your work. And I think before we do that, I want to acknowledge you, Pete, as coach. Are you open to that?
I am.
Mm-hmm. So first of all, man, I really acknowledge your, it's like tenacity and initiative is not really quite the right word. It's sort of like the purpose you are, the commitment, the stand you are for this work and for transformation and for yourself. Because I didn't put out an offer for people to be on the show. You know, you created this, you generated this. And so I really acknowledge you for, that's part of who you are in the world, is just like very someone that leans in and that goes after the thing. I really acknowledge you for playing to win in that rather than playing not to lose. Thanks for your wit and like just like ease and playfulness. And then I also really acknowledge you for practicing setting that down from time to time so you can learn new tools. And as someone who loves the fact that he's hilarious and witty, I know that that is not an easy thing to do. And I acknowledge again the commitment and the trust that requires, because as we're learning new tools, it's not like the new tool is like, yeah, I'm screwing stuff in with this power drill. It's like, yeah, I broke the house. I'm the dum-dum. I'm the moron. I'm sorry. And so, not that you did that here, but like really, you know, I acknowledge the courage and the trust and the practice that you bring into the space. Really, really awesome work today.
Thank you.
And also, thanks for rocking a sick mustache. You could be coaching or you could be out prospecting for gold somewhere, and I would buy either of those situations.
That's what I'm doing next.
Nice. Yeah. Excellent. Okay, cool. So debrief. This is just, there's no right answers, more just like, what did you notice? What were you present to? What did you see happen or unfold or experience or anything along those lines? So Chris, anything that was alive for you now that we're on the other side of it that you noticed or felt or want to share?
Giving you your 3 seconds. Yeah, well, you know, it was coming into this like knowing not what to expect, right? Just sort of being in agreement that, and this seems like a conversation that would be great to have. And I feel like it's interesting because, and I see how it takes longer to get through to somebody like me because I have all these mechanisms that typically that's where people stop. They're like, oh, okay, cool. And so it's both frustrating for me because you did kind of keep on, you know, like, do you really? Do you really? And you know what I mean? Like, so it gets frustrating, but at the same time, it was good to sort of get through a little bit of that to get to this sort of like micro practice and also thinking about regardless of what I am bringing for myself, I'm really glad that my intention shows through. Right. Like that I have a genuine care for like what I'm doing, why I'm doing it and who I'm doing it for. And so I'm glad that like comes through. And so that was, yeah, that was great. You never know how these things are going to go, man. This was great. I am mentally, I'm just making another comment about that maker versus manager time, because you never know in something like this what's going to get pulled on, right? And that creative muscle got pulled on. Like you get it's like playing a game and you're tired afterwards, but you're tired in a different way than if you're just sleepy. And so in that same way, that creative muscle got pulled, and it was interesting. So I'm glad I was up to guinea pig this.
Yeah, good call. Me too. I'm glad you were too. It's funny, like, because I was talking about ceremony at the start of the show, but it's the same. I assert that what happens in plant medicine ceremony, at least with ayahuasca, and what happens in these conversations is the same work. Different mode of that work being delivered, but the same work. And people show up and they're like, all right, I know it's going to be hard, and I've heard the stories, and hit me in the face. I'm ready for the punch right in the face. And then the work hits us like here, and we're like, ah. So it's so funny, you know, we're always ready for the thing that we think we know we're supposed to fix about ourselves. Sure. And then it almost never becomes that thing. Hilarious. Nice. What about you, Pete?
Yeah. First, just a quick shout out to Jewel for starting me on this path. Business coach, and then also a previous member of the Forge. Thank you for being here and for who you are, who you be. What was this like for me? I think there was a familiarity to it, in that I often struggle to help a client to get clear on what they're wanting. I think some of that is a function of the type of clients that I draw to myself, because I think I also do this when I'm being coached. It's like, hey, all sorts of words to it, and look at how smart I am that I've already figured all this stuff out. But it's all over here in the way that this is the way it goes. And so the experience for me was really one of not grabbing the shiny thing in front of me, because Chris's defense mechanism was really good at just laying down another thing, another breadcrumb, follow it over here, another breadcrumb, follow it over here.
Yep. And
what was really interesting for me is that we eventually got back to priorities and boundaries, right? But we did it with depth that wouldn't have been present if I had just chased priorities right out of the gate. And so it was really cool for me to see that by being a stand for getting really a little bit deeper, and, you know, checking in, Chris, with you, say, hey, does this feel uncomfortable enough to feel like it's alive? And it was. Even if you weren't totally connected to it, I trusted that there is a lot of discomfort here in setting down the other stuff for whatever's right here in front of you. And so it was really neat to see how that worked. And it did feel like hard work for me to not go jumping after it, and to go, right, let me pause for a couple of moments before I ask the next question, to make sure that question's in service of figuring out what your agenda is and then moving towards that agenda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you did a phenomenal job. Like, well, the first thing I noticed was, Chris, you got stiller as time got on. Like I could feel you more present, more in yourself. You know, if you ever go back and watch or listen, it's an interesting thing to listen for, because you actually dropped down further and your answers became more reflective and more intimate in what came forward, which was super cool. And I really acknowledge you, Pete, for one, having the rapport to allow that, and for honoring your client's process. And you did a great job of acknowledging him for the work that he was doing, which is, oh my God, we suck doing that. We're all like, but you could take this step, or I could be here and I meant to be there. And we discount the small step we take, and then it all becomes a grind and all falls away. And you did a really good job, like, honoring Chris each step of the way. This is a small thing for you, Pete, but at the end you asked, like, what would it look like to practice in the space with more presence? And for someone who's like, wow, like a million ideas, your language can be it's very impactful, the language we use. And so it might be something as simple as, like, what would be one way to practice, and then you're helping them narrow their own thinking for them. But like, this is a small, I'm offering this because you're practicing in a deep container with us, and so there's more there. But like, you did a great job sort of like supporting Chris through that process, because of course, if we're somewhere brand new that he's not practicing in already, which hopefully is the area we're in, then he's not going to know the answer. And then you supported him to take a few swings. It was really great. And I also really love how you acknowledged how he'd been already practicing it. So kind of bringing that more top of mind. Yeah, it's hilarious. You saying what you did about like the sort of people that you draw to you. And I was just like, it's like mirrors all the way down.
That was just, turtles.
Like, like, oh, we got people that are hilarious and charming and can spin a good yarn. It's a little too close to home here. Amazing. Okay, Chris, what the heck is Fighting Shape Impact Co? What are you doing in the world? Tell us about that so that people know, the cool stuff you're up to and where they can find you and all of that.
Yeah, so I am an artist. People can see a lot of that at chrismcadoo.com. I am a speaker, chrismcadoospeaks.com, and I love to visit. I love to bring this energy to audiences, and I speak a lot about the power of creativity and intuition and intention, not just individually, but in like I speak to a lot of large companies and organizations, particularly with multi-generational workforces, right? That are like, what are these young kids talking about? And the kids ask, what's grandpa got in his mouth, and it's like, it's a lot of fun to work with audiences from 10 to 1,000, it's a hard candy. And then Fighting Shape Impact Company, I've been able to have a pretty cool life, but Fighting Shape, I as well as some really awesome folks do high impact boot camps around brand, customer experience, and brand, customer experience, who you're serving, why, how, and what to do about it. And then long-term fractional leadership engagement. So I help like people with really hard things to explain in terms of technology and material science kind of stuff. I help them go out in the world and talk about it in a way that keeps people's attention and helps raise money and bring customers.
Amazing.
Yeah, so that's me. And then everybody can learn. Yeah, so chrismcadoo.com, chrismcadoospeaks.com, and then fightingshapeimpact.com. And then follow me here on the LinkedIn machine, and we'll see if I take any of my own medicine, ayahuasca or otherwise. I'm more of an ibuprofen guy, but depends.
Strong medicine.
There we go.
Do you have any? So one, it looks like you can wail pretty hard too, or you've got just lovely looking guitars behind you.
Oh, yeah. I'm a musician.
He can play. I've seen it.
You're based in Nashville, right?
Knoxville, Tennessee. Yeah,
Knoxville.
East Tennessee.
Okay.
So East Tennessee. Yeah.
Is that musically prone as well?
It's actually interesting. Nashville is sort of known as the music city, but all of the players live in Knoxville. Like there's a lot of your session guys and a lot of your guys that travel. You have some of the best players in the world that a lot of your, I would, a way to say it is potentially a lot of the people listening, they know that sound. They just didn't know it was that guy or that or that girl. And so it's kind of neat, but I'm very much in the amateur category for that. But yeah, I have a lot of fun with that. Yeah.
And then what, do you have any events or like a newsletter, anything like that coming up that people should be aware of?
Yeah, I've got two things. I am doing a terrible job at my newsletter, but I'm trying my damnedest to get that thing where I'm sharing just general observations as well as best practices around brand and clear, concise communication and multi-generational kind of stuff. And that you can subscribe to that at fightingshapeimpact.com.
Great newsletter then for people that are finding themselves overwhelmed with their inbox.
Yes. Definitely the thing that I want you to do is get one more email, every week. But also people can, there's I'm emceeing a summit in about 2 months on April 23rd in Knoxville. So if you're in Tennessee or anywhere within a day's drive, called More Signal, Less Noise. And it's facts, fiction, and FOMO as AI goes to work. And so it's a full day. It's about a half day where a collaborator of mine came up with the idea, Marcus Blair, to bring folks that are putting that particular kind of technology into action for large businesses, like small to medium, and like what the actual thing is, rather than the facts, fiction, and FOMO. And then we've got like a legal panel around intellectual property, safety, and security. And you can learn more about that at moresignal865.com. A super limited number of tickets because it's going to be a pretty high touch, kind of day. But cool. Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I like to lean into the things that, just like today, it's like, I like to lean into the things that terrify me and just be like, all right, let's go. And so AI is one of those things. And actually, if you go to fightingshapeimpact.com, you'll also see a banner at the top where you can watch me do a Pachacacha talk, which is 6 minutes and 40 seconds, where I talk about AI in the creativity in the age of AI, to a packed house. And it's a pretty high energy thing. But we all howl at the moon in the middle of it. So I would love it if folks check that out.
That sounds awesome. Cool. Thanks, Chris. And what about you, Pete? What do you got going on?
I'm currently in month 6 of 9 with the Forge. So I'm taking my medicine and in it with you and a bunch of wonderful human beings who are also committed to this work. You can find me at drkcoaching.com, drkcoaching.com, or all day dr.k on Instagram. Find me on LinkedIn. It's just my name. But I do transformational mental performance work. And so a lot of what this looked like with Chris today, whether it's with high performing athletes, leaders in business, people who are interested in starting their own companies, or in that process of being a founder and trying to take it to the next level. And so I'm really interested in this ontological work through the lens of performance, and that performance gets to be the sandbox in which we can become more fully ourselves. And so that for me is just is about as switched on as I can get, is the opportunity to do that. And so love the opportunity to do that here today, and then obviously to get the feedback as well. And I also host my own podcast called The Mental Training Lab. And so we do interviews with coaches, performance psych professionals, athletes, and performers. And then I also, every other, at least once a month, do a little soliloquy where I pick a topic and then riff on it for 10 to 20 minutes, with the goal of people walking away with something different to do.
And he's never had me on as a guest, which is actually a feather in his cap, I think.
That's actually addition by subtraction.
Your presence is felt. Don't worry.
And you're doing a keynote like this weekend, right? On ontology and performance and stuff. Is that right?
Yeah. I'm headed to a regional conference for sports psychology right after we finish up. And I'm going to be offering, it'll be my first keynote ever. And it's funny how when they call it a keynote, it doesn't feel like a regular presentation anymore. But yeah, I'll be talking about how to marry mental skills with this ontological approach, which I'm going to be really excited about, because the skills change how they play out when we shift our being, and they can start working for us instead of keeping us just right back where we started.
Yeah. Wow. So cool. Will that be online? Like, will you be sharing that in any way?
I will probably be talking about it for the rest of my life. But the keynote itself will be
stand behind you in line at like Jamba Juice or something like that.
That's right. But wherever there's an acai bowl, that's just, you'll find me proselytizing. Yeah, but the keynote itself will be only for attendees.
Okay, so that's not going to go up on your website or anything like that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. But people can learn more about what you're talking about through your podcast, your website, that sort of stuff.
That's right. Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Cool. Chris, Pete, thank you so much. I'm going to leave it there. I want to let those awesome things that you guys are both up to sit on their own. So Everyone that tuned in, thank you. Big thanks to Jules. Thank you, Jules, for like connecting Pete and I together, first of all, and like, you know, really being a stand for this work. And thank you truly everyone that tuned in to watch. Thank you everyone listening after the fact. You know, this work grows when we let it in. And so even just listening to it is a step towards that. It allows it to start to take root, and then it grows of its own accord. So beautiful, beautiful work, all of you. Thank you for tuning in, and have an amazing weekend. We'll see you guys all soon. Later.
Later.
And then I click this end stream button.
Oh.
I like to say,